honestly.
Traveling is the most unhealthy thing in the world. I mean,
You think so?
Our devices and traveling, number one and number two, I think.
Traveling just because of sleep dysregulation and stuff like that, or what?
Everything, right? Like, think about it. Even my past trip, I went from Wyoming to El Salvador. There's actually 0 time change right now. So same exact time zone. But I felt, so out of place. I felt so suboptimal when I was there because my body just went from Wyoming winter to, the 13th latitude in El Salvador. It was 90 degrees, 80% humidity. So I went from like 30 to 40 degrees, 0% humidity to being so closely coupled to my local environment. I mean, I was sleeping in a house with temperature at 50 degrees. And
sounds incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was cold plunging every day. I was eating carnivore, and then you just displace yourself completely. Your body almost is like starting from scratch. You're like, all right, we completely changed our environment. Let's get all these input signals and let's understand how we can align to this local environment. And that's why I actually decided, I think there's like a gray area with travel. I'd almost rather travel somewhere for like 7 days or 3 months.
Yeah.
Anything in between is kind of this weird gray area where like, yeah, you can get over the jet lag in like a day, maybe 2 days. And then you have a nice 5 days where you're just kind of living off like a high almost of it feels good. But then when you're in that 2, 3, 4 week zone, your body's like really getting into adapting to that new environment. Yeah. And then right when you start to make progress, you go back home and then you have to start all over again. So, and then you could go into, airports are extremely toxic because of the density of people, the density of devices, the density of EMFs.
I have another idea for like a super based airport.
Yeah.
Like open air, grounded floors.
It's a prison. Yeah, you can't even go outside. Like if you have a layover somewhere, you can't even go outside.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, no airports really have outdoor space either.
The last time I had a layover in New York City in JFK, I actually completely left the airport and went outside for an hour and like called my mom and just sat in the sun with my shirt off. And all the airport workers were like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And it was because it was like, yeah, I have a 2-hour layover, a 3-hour layover. Like I'm going to be deliberate about going outside, coming back from Europe. It's just, it's a prison. It's like schools. It's like hospitals. You're so confined. You're trapped in this indoor space, like the studio here. We need to just get back into embracing nature. And it's really that simple. Like we don't need all these gadgets and hacks, but I have to wear blue light blocking glasses because of the environment we've created, not because of what we could be in the real world, which is outdoors.
Yeah. And that kind of relates to why y'all are here and what y'all are doing. Like getting back to, I think I heard you say, Anjan, one time about like the screens now are like they don't align with our evolution. Like we're not aligned with them. And so I think that kind of stems exactly to what you're talking about. It's like getting back to a natural way of using technology. But first off, we kind of just got ripping. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for having us.
In Austin for a couple of days, so I'm glad we could connect. I think what y'all are doing is absolutely incredible, and I'm super excited to even be able to talk to you and be a part of the journey. You got the event tomorrow, which is super cool. I kind of want to start with your story because I listened to y'all's podcast together, and I really resonated with your comment about ADHD. So I was prescribed or diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger, and what I always say is I was a 13-year-old boy in basement classrooms with no windows, listening to fat teachers talk about shit I did not care about at all, and I had trouble focusing, no wonder. All I wanted to do was go outside, play sports, build stuff with my hands, and they basically gave me freaking meth for 7 years.
Yeah, jeez, man.
So when you said that, and now I even, like, as I've learned things about screens, I definitely find myself being more susceptible to the addictive nature of those screens. So if you could kind of talk about like that part of your childhood, that'd be great.
And I think one thing that comes up for me with this also is you could argue a lot of this health stuff, a lot of this sovereignty stuff is like taking responsibility. And I think what comes with taking responsible is also like being responsible is holding others responsible. And it's like enough's enough where we're blaming ourselves and we're medicating ourselves because these things are made without care for us, without the way we work. right? Like, let's hold them responsible. Like, it's not, let's stop drugging kids and saying they got mental illness and dysfunctional when, dude, we're humans. Like, we worked. People have been making babies for a long time to get to you. Like, that's one sperm out of like 3 billion or 3 trillion that had to win to make you happen. Like, each of us are special, you know?
Yeah.
And it keeps saying, oh, you're broken in this way, you're in that. I think it's irresponsible. I think the adults in the room should take responsibility and say, you don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? And so I think the core story is like, how do you be responsible for yourself, and how do you hold those responsible who are not being responsible? And I think that's the difficulty of my childhood, is I had such a powerful, domineering, controlling mom it didn't work. She was completely focused on kids. Everything got papered over because she was my executive function. She was my accountability. I didn't need dopamine because she was dragging me here and taking me there. And so I did well, and it was almost like a massive curse, because then when I finally got freedom or I went to college, I fell apart because I thought all the ways that things were going badly, I was responsible for. Oh, I must suck in this way. Oh, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And so just the higher you go, you know, the deeper you fall. It was just this big fall in self-confidence where I was riding high. I went to a good school. I could do well. I was a good athlete, good in studies, and, you know, I read a lot. And next thing you know, it's like, I can't get an essay done in time. I have 500 tabs open. I've spent 2 hours on ESPN, like learning about like lacrosse, which I never played even once. And I just started blaming myself. Like, you suck. You just don't have discipline. You're weak. You don't deserve success. Like, you don't deserve success. It didn't matter elsewhere in my life if I had discipline. I did rowing and crew for a while. You had to get up at 4 a.m. and like I was able to do it. But the feeling of like, I don't know why I keep picking this example, but I'm like, oh, okay, I got to write this essay, and then just like pissing away my time, or making a commitment to somebody like, okay, I'll get that to you tomorrow. And then randomly 1 hour before being like, oh, fuck, I didn't do it. Right. And I just started to tell my stories to myself that were very disempowering. And what made me afraid was the idea that, like, what if I can't ever hold down like a single career or job? It doesn't matter if I'm a hedge fund manager or I'm a cashier at Walgreens or, you know, a supply chain manager at Amazon. It's like you're going to be working with a computer. And if all a computer meant to me was all the ways that my brain was broken, rearing its head back at me, fuck.
Yeah, that's tough.
Fuck. Right? And so I think a lot of the motivation to build this was just to give myself some hope that maybe I'm not completely broken. You know, maybe I am trying, and I'm trying my best, and I just need to get the things around me to be in my best interest. Like, I love this quote, like, an average teacher teaches somebody, and if they don't understand, says, try harder. A good teacher teaches somebody, and when they don't understand, he tries harder, right? Or she tries harder. And it was like that. Like, rather than blame myself, it's just like, how do I design my environment to make me successful? How does that try harder, right? And so I always have these like little examples that are seemingly trivial, but they hold a lot of significance for me. I was on a plane, and I just read a book. It's like Death of Ivan Ilyich, some like fancy Tolstoy thing. It turns out is actually pretty simple, conversational to read. I've been procrastinating on it for months and months and months. And I finally read it because I was on a shitty plane that didn't have Wi-Fi and didn't have any good movies, and I had nothing to do, and I got bored and fucking tired of the baby crying behind me, and I just started reading it. And next thing you know, I've read most of the book. I'm not a different person. I wasn't on Ritalin. I wasn't taking anything. I didn't suddenly get all disciplined. I was just the same person. But the environment was set up for my success. And that was kind of like left an imprint on me that, oh wow, if all of us can continue to take responsibility, understand that we can do a lot with our agency, but also appreciate that the environment around us can do a better job to support the best version of ourselves, maybe it is possible to be that best version you envision. And that's what this journey was. It's like, technology's undermining me. What does it look like to change it so I can be a little bit closer to that better version of myself? And before you know it, hopefully each little piece of confidence builds upon itself. And that's the hope with Daylight, is to just shine a ray of light that, you know, the life you think you can have is a little bit more possible. And there's so many aspects of your life, your relationships, your family, your devotion, everything else that really matters. But there's something about the omnipresence of technology where it also feels like it matters.
Yeah, well, that's incredible, and I relate to that a ton. Like in college, I would be trying to write an essay, and I was an athlete and stuff like. So the same sort of conversations where I'm like, okay, I know I'm disciplined. Like I literally wake up this time and I do this, and then I'd sit down on my computer, and I was notorious for this. I would wait until not even the night that a project was due. I would go to sleep early and then wake up
The next morning.
No, I'm dead serious. 2:30, 3 a.m. and crank it. I remember vividly. I did like a midterm project. Woke up at 3 a.m. and did it before an 8 a.m. class. But what that showed me is like, okay, that's still not an optimal environment. When the pressure was there, I could do it. It's not like I'm a different person. But it just seemed like impossible for me, and I felt like I would always like lose myself on the same thing. I would literally just start looking up like cars or like random sports that I don't even care about. So I relate to that, which I think I'm definitely not alone. I definitely don't think you're alone. Do you, Tristan?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, same thing. It's funny because like in high school, just like didn't really have to try hard to like be successful in school, and well, yeah, all I want to do is play sports and go outside with my friends. And then in college, you know, being an athlete as well. And then the schooling actually got so hard to where you had to commit a large amount of time. And, you know, it was a challenge. And yeah, you're always procrastinating. To me, it was a telltale sign of just like, this isn't really what I'm passionate about. So it's not only, you know, a testament to the environment that we're in, but really just the educational system in general. And that's kind of what Andre was just saying. It's like the way we're taught this material or the way we're brought up in all aspects of education has such a incorrect perspective in terms of being in line with how our biology functions and what we should really be grasping on in terms of key concepts that are going to set us up for success. So it transcends even the technology. It's the system as a whole. And it really needs an overhauling, but it's going to be a massive effort. And you see that now. I mean, we're here podcasting, we're all like, you know, creating content. There's so many avenues now. So that's that double-edged sword of the internet is it's somewhat liberating from an educational perspective because you can go and learn a lot of things on your own and learn about things you're passionate about. But then you're also hooked on, you know, the internet and the education. The technology. So it's an interesting inflection point right now. And I think we're making a lot of progress in terms of people becoming aware of all of this information and how it relates to their health, to their mental health, to their well-being.
Yeah, and that's where I think what y'all are doing comes in. It's like, I think a tool that wouldn't intentionally make people utterly addicted to it and become a victim of I don't even know how many factors that are literally designed for us to be addicted to it more and more and more. If there was a tool like Daylight Computer where people could access the internet and get that education without that like victimizing pull. And it sounds like, it kind of sounds soft or weak to say, but like we just talked about it. It's like, it literally is addicting. And I'm curious, was there like a single moment when you were starting, like, what was the impetus, like the very first like seed of an idea where you're like, oh shit, I think I could make a computer where maybe that's not the case?
Let's see. I think it's like a bunch of seeds. It's like somebody just threw them in the garden. Some grew, but I can give you some vignettes. I think one was, I was very disillusioned with my time in Silicon Valley. I went to college there, so I spent 2 years just backpacking around the world and just reading random stuff, literature, and thermodynamics and how the universe works. And I was just being in a beautiful place. I remember being on this island in Indonesia, and I could go and actually be in the place with my Kindle. I could sit outside in the sun and read it. And then I was trying to read some papers or stuff, and I have to be stuck back inside on my iPad or laptop. I didn't even need the Wi-Fi. I downloaded it. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm in this like lobby of this like $8 per night hostel in the most beautiful place. And I'm surrounded by like fluorescent light bulbs and dingy stuff. Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, why is my computer telling me where to be versus I'm telling the computer where I want to be? Something's not working out here, man. So that was one that just like stuck with me. I think the other one was I decided to finally ban all gadgets from my bedroom because I just stay up late, addicted to it. First thing in the morning, I'd be on my phone, and before you know it, like pissed away 2 hours, and then you feel like shit. And I just like I feel like shit. You know, I'm like less confident to ask a girl out because I already feel like I suck. You know, and you know every other knock on effect in the day, and it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, I banned every computer and gadget from my room, but I didn't even realize my Kindle is a gadget. It felt so much like an analog object, like a printout or a paper book or something like that, like a magazine or something. It didn't even occur to me that it's a computer. And that was like an aha for me, because it was like, oh, if we can make a computer that doesn't look or feel like a computer, you can reset your relationship with technology. Because it's almost like technology is like that ex you keep dating over and over again.
Yeah, that's
right?
a great way to put it.
Like you break up with her and the next person, geez, is it the same person? Yeah. And you just cannot like lose the association of the last one. And that's what it feels like. Oh, it's this new MacBook that does this. And it's still the same white glowing rectangle that acts the same way. And there was something about the Kindle where it was finally like dating somebody who was different than every ex you've ever had. So you don't bring all that baggage. You don't bring all that associations. You don't have all those same triggers. And I genuinely feel at like not just a physiological level, but a psychological level, there was space for me to have a new relationship, a new identity, and a new set of associations. I go on my iPhone, before I know it, it's like I'm on YouTube. You know, it's just like all pre-programmed. I've run this test, not on the Kindle, but on our thing where I put YouTube in the middle of the thing. I don't do it. We're not even talking about all the things we're doing on software to make it less distracting. If we do nothing on software, somehow the same habit patterns aren't there. And so that felt like a real click, which is so much of technology focuses on specs, focuses on how is this faster, focuses on like here are like the 8 things you can do in Final Cut Pro because now you got the newest this. And I feel like what's really underappreciated is like this little psychological shifts. They're subtle, they're subjective. You can't necessarily put a number to it. But for me, it was the realest thing out of them all. And so it was putting together experiences like this. I think one of the catalysts was I was just like extremely depressed, and I was just like, I'm so done with life. And I just got tired of people being like, hey, so what are you doing? And I just felt all this judgment from them that I was just like doing nothing, just like reading books in my parents' basement. And so I love to say it was from a more noble place, but literally I was just like, fuck this shit, you know? I got something in me. Yeah. And my hope was to come up with a big idea. And I love health technology, medical. I come from a family of doctors. That's what I wanted to kind of do. So in trying to pursue that, I was trying to read a lot of papers and learn the research. I was struggling with my devices, and all these different experiences came back, being in Indonesia or the Kindle in my bedroom. And so I was trying to make a better computer for like research. And I tried all these e-ink devices. I tried printing stuff out and scanning it. I tried a million different things, and none of it worked. And so I was like, I can get sometimes obsessive. And so I was trying to figure out what I could do for this. And then it ended up becoming this project. Me just trying to create the computer I wanted, like an ADHD-friendly, blue light-free, eye strain-free computer that you can use outside and then wouldn't mess up my mornings and my nights. And I was hoping I could do that so I could do the big idea. TBD, maybe my big idea is still ahead of me. But it's funny that 6 years later, this is what I've put my life into. So.
Well, it's a pretty damn big idea. Interesting. We're talking out there, like just the potential impact of this is so, it's invigorating to me. It really is, because how many people in America use a Bluelitz phone? Pretty much like 99.9% of people over the age of 6 now, which is insane. You take even a fraction of those people that actually care at all, or at least are aware. Maybe all of them care, but there's just not a lot of awareness or education on it, which is so cool. Like part of what y'all are doing is educating. If you take like a fraction of those people and allow them to have access to a device like this, that could literally change their lives. Because you're exactly right. I mean, there's more. Everybody can relate to like the X comment's funny. you'll go through like a binge scrolling session, and then you'll be like, dang it. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. And then like 2 days later, you find yourself like on the toilet just scrolling, and you're like, dang it. And there's parameters that I've even like on my iPhone done that have really helped. Like, I've had my brother put in a screen time password, so I have app limits.
Oh,
so
you
I
had to ask
literally
him.
can't go on
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube more than like 15, 5, whatever they are for each app, which has really helped. So if anybody's listening, that's been really good for me.
Great hack.
But I would rather just not have to do that, you know?
It's a Band-Aid solution, just like
Yeah.
these blue light blocking glasses. It's a Band-Aid approach. It's not really going after the root cause. It's like taking supplements to fix all your health problems. Like it's not addressing the root cause. Can be beneficial, but like Anjan said, is like what's incredible is if you change the hardware, the screen technology, you'll probably find yourself scrolling a lot less because you just have that better relationship and you have that, peace of mind. Like you're not in this hyper sensitive state from the light, from the flicker of the screen that's going to make you very vulnerable and very likely to be scrolling more, to be spending more time, because you're really just rewiring your whole neural reward system.
And it's intentional. Like that's literally the intention of these apps. And
Definitely the apps. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, maybe not the phone. I mean, maybe, but the apps like 100% are made to hack into your
Yes.
hardware, your human software to make you as addicted as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Which is
and it's just like, think about all the bad decisions you've made after you've had like 5 drinks.
Yeah.
It's the same way. That's what the screen is doing to you. It's making you drunk from a hardware perspective so that when you go and, have a shot or could be a hard drug or get in a fight, like by just being intoxicated, that's what's happening with the screens. And that's what the social media apps are preying on. So it's this negative synergistic relationship that is just dismantling the cognition of our society.
this is kind of a question for both of y'all. What is it about the modern like Samsung or iPhone or whatever blue lit screen you're using? Like, what is it about the actual device that's so addicting, or so like dysfunctional or dysregulating to our like physiology?
Yeah, I mean, blue light, just the light spectrum of screens, of artificial indoor lighting is highly unnatural. So anything that's, the further it strays from what is naturally occurring from the sun, from nature, from the outdoors, is going to be foreign to our biology. So the spectrum of light coming from screens is very rich in blue light and very deficient or completely absent in red infrared. So it's an unbalanced spectrum to start, and blue light is highly stimulating. It's a high energy wavelength. It's controlling and setting our body clock or our circadian rhythm. It's how our body tells time. So you can imagine there's multiple angles happening here, and I'm just talking about blue light. And then it's also, lighting up our neurotransmitters. So you get that dopamine effect from blue light as well. And you get that. I mean, when you go outside in the middle of the day, like you feel good. You feel like you've got a sense of energy and that you want to be outside more. And blue light in isolation is completely different than blue light from the sun. Really, no light is bad. It's just the wrong context. And we're getting it in this completely alien dosage at the wrong times and in the wrong forms. So from the time perspective, using it, right before you go to bed, there's no light after the sun sets, and there's certainly not any blue light. And blue light is, back to what I just said, is how our body tells time. So when you mess with our body clock, imagine, we have our event tomorrow and everyone's running around with a different time on their wristwatch, and that's how they tell time. How the hell are we going to have an event that's successful if everyone's showing up at different times? It's never going to happen. That's pure chaos. And biological chaos is inflammation. And, that results in many things such as chronic fatigue, and just over the long term, chronic fatigue turns into chronic disease. And this has been documented, and it's finally gaining popularity because of folks like Huberman, and it's becoming more understood from a wide perspective. But that's just one component. And then you get into the flicker of the light, the pulsing nature of these LEDs, light from the sun.
Is that noticeable? Like, cause I hear flicker and does it actually flicker? I don't,
Yeah, so we
You won't notice it, but the point is there might be a slight chronic noticing that shows up as a migraine or as a headache or
okay.
as an eye strain. If you put a slow motion camera, you'll be able to see it.
Okay.
So you visually cannot see it.
So that's why when you put a
because-
slow motion camera, you can kind of like
Yeah,
on a
even
screen.
when you take a picture of your screen, it looks like very distorted.
Okay.
And it's something that we can't visually perceive that well, unless it's like a really low flicker rate. But anywhere from hundreds of times per second to hundreds of thousands of times per second, these LEDs are switching on and off. And that's also how they're being used to change the brightness of a screen, the dimming factor. And that's something that is kind of like known in the eye strain community, but people kind of ignore as like a really important data point in why our technology is so bad for us. So for us, there's kind of a few core principles, and it's the light, disrupting the circadian rhythm and your sleep. And just being like very high energy and harmful. There's the flicker, which is causing, again, similar things. And then there's also the fact that it's completely just confining us indoors. Like Anjan said, I want to be in control. I want to be telling my computer where I can go. So when you're not outside, you are inside under more artificial light, which is about the same. They're using LEDs, fluorescence. It's the same distorted spectrum. It's the same issue with flicker. And then you're missing out on so much energy from a photon perspective from the sunlight. And you wonder why you're suffering from all these health issues, or you're just needing all these stimulants, all these supplements, all these crutches. And goes back to how that affects you on a psychological level. You're low dopamine because of that environment. And then you're more susceptible to all these things drawing you in and then pushing you further down this, negative feedback loop. So it's really just so multifaceted, but the importance of light as kind of being that main input signal to our biology cannot be understated. And, now we're handing iPads to 2-year-olds, to 3-year-olds. And
2 days
we
ago,
wonder
and the
why.
kid was literally just like right there at dinner with his family.
Yeah.
Just he might have been 5 years old, maybe.
And
Just
you
right there.
wonder why, mental health issues are soaring through the roof, because every student in every school probably past, 6th grade has a device that they're learning on, and then they go home and then they're on screens. I think it was a statistic that by the time a kid in this new era, maybe like Gen Z or later, is 17, they'll have spent 50,000 hours on screens. That's like over 1/3 of their life.
That is
So
wild.
we just made it, like our age group. I think I didn't, really use a laptop every day until I went to college.
Yeah, same.
I didn't have a smartphone until I was 16. I was like one of the later people. Thank you, Mom. But I still played a lot of video games and all these things. But the personal handheld devices are really just capturing our children and setting them up for failure at the earliest age.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about the sunlight too. Like, I've never thought about that. The device sort of dictates where you go. There's the physiological part, but there's also the part where you're literally just missing out. You could be on a freaking incredible island in Indonesia and you're just missing out on that because you want to do something on your phone, or even maybe you need to like call somebody or send a text, but you can't do it outside.
Right.
Why can on the daylight computer and that technology, why is that possible? And why is it not possible? Because everybody knows like the glare. I mean, I literally work outside sometimes at the Meat Mafia office, and I'll have to come in sometimes and I'm like, I can't even see. So why is that possible?
Yeah. You were saying, like, is this intentional? And I think in a way, some of these hardware choices are indirectly intentional. They know about LEDs having unbalanced blue. They could do something about it. But their just values won't allow it. Why? Because they sell you on their new laptop saying 3 million colors and this much contrast, and look how great Netflix will look good on it. They're optimizing for Netflix to look good. They're optimizing for Avatar 2 to look good, right? Like it's built to be this entertainment, wow, raz, pops, shiny thing. And if you were to move away from a blue-white LED to, let's say, like a warmer LED, it's going to be better for your health, but you're going to lose some of that color space. You're going to lose that, like, totally looking fantastic. And they're choosing appearances over health every single time. And so I think computing has broadly chosen that, and that's why computers can't really be seen outside, because they're all part of this category of computing called emissive screens. Essentially, you can call them screens that are trying to outcompete the environment. What they are is basically a flashlight with silhouettes on top of it. And when you're looking at your screen and you're seeing letters, they're blocking the flashlight that's coming through in those areas, and that look like black letters. And the areas they don't block, that's the white. And that's how a screen works, is you change where the silhouettes are blocking.
So
light or
emissive
not.
meaning like it's emitting its own.
It's like a flashlight. It's emissive. It's emitting light. Yeah. And the reason that doesn't work outside is it's visible because it's outcompeting everything else. What I mean by that is the light coming from it is brighter than the light bouncing off of it. So inside that kind of is reasonably the case. But you go outside, it's like good luck competing with the sun, right? It's like somebody who like killed it in their like little towns, like judo tournament.
Yeah.
And they go to like their state and they're like, yeah, and they just get mauled.
Yeah.
That's like that. It's like indoors is like your little town judo tournament. And then going outside is like, okay, it's like the national championships, right? Like
the big leagues.
try to beat the sun. And so that's, I think, what technology is a lot of arrogance. Oh, I'm going to outcompete. I'm going to conquer. I'm going to win. Bah, bah, bah. And then you face nature and then you're like, bow the fuck down. And I think what we're hopefully bringing back is the second category of computing screens, which are trying to be in harmony with nature. Rather than emitting light and competing, it is reflecting light or bouncing light and in cahoots or in harmony with nature. And so that's why our screen is visible outside, because the nature of how it works is it's like a piece of paper, which bounces light, goes from the sun, hits the thing, and goes into your eyes. And what we are able to do is we're able to make the ink, basically the ink on the page, move around. If we cover the entire page with ink, it looks black. If we cover 0% of the page with ink, it's white. And we cover certain parts of it, then you get letters. And you move them quickly, and you get video. And in a way, you have created a moving piece of paper, but it's using the sunlight to be visible. Normally on a normal screen, you need to shine light to get the white, and then the active thing you need to do is to shine the light to create the white. On a reflective screen, like kind of what we have, on a paper-like screen, you don't need to do anything active to create a white. The white is there by default. It shines and hits it. So like on another screen, their truth, when you turn it off, is darkness. On a reflective screen, its truth, when you turn it off, is it's white. And I think that's kind of symbolic, I think, of the difference here, right? Where they're going for sex appeal. Our thing is never going to have as good colors. Heck, in the first version, there isn't color at all. We can eventually do it, but not for some time. We're giving up the sex appeal. We're giving up the hypersaturation. We're giving up the razzle dazzle. But in return, you get something that is in harmony with your environment, which can use sunlight, which doesn't strain your eyes, that isn't emitting blue light because it's not emitting light. It doesn't have flicker. And that's that second category where rather than putting a further emissive screen on your face with virtual reality, which Zuckerberg and Tim Cook want you to do, like, come on, man. I don't want to do that for myself nor for my family. What would it look like to have the different surfaces in your house, be it a calendar, be it a little physical therapy like stretch chart or whatever it may be, those be made out of a paper-like reflective surface. So it just looks like art, just looks like a poster. But because it's a computer, it can change, right? So it can update your calendar based on the day. It can put you your to-do list. It can show your family's chores. And I think that's a more beautiful way to have spatial computing as part of your home. And so if we're right about reflective screens, these screens that are in harmony with the environment rather than out-competing it, we hopefully have a bit of that Kindle effect I was pointing at earlier, where you get the power of computing without the bullshit of computing. You get the magic of computing without the overwhelm of computing. Something that's easy on your nervous system, that is respectful of your time and attention. And so we're starting with the tablet, but that screen technology we invented, this kind of fast, reflective paper-like screen. We can make a watch, we can make a phone, we can make a laptop, we can make a monitor, we can make a whiteboard, we can make a calendar, on and on and on. And the hope is they just allow computers to give you some benefit while just blending into your environment on your terms. So
That's awesome. Yeah, the thing that sticks out to me is in harmony with nature and not competing with it, which is who said, Hippocrates said, like, all disease comes from like removing yourself from nature or something like that. Like,
it's very Tristan.
yeah, it sounds like something.
Well, think about it, right? Like what Anja just said is that, yeah, we're removing the sex appeal, but really we're giving you the fulfillment. We're trying to encourage you to get that fulfillment from the real world. And what is the real world? It's the natural world. You know, when we did our podcast, Nolan, when I'm sitting on my deck in my house in Wyoming, I'm looking at a stunning landscape with hills and, you know, a canyon that has a river ripping through it. It's stunning. And we've outsourced our really true fulfillment and desires and all these dopamine, serotonin hits to our devices. We live in this fake world that only exists on the, you know, technology that we're using, and we're watching cool videos. And don't get me wrong, I love watching, you know, an incredible video of, you know, something like some dude ripping a crazy ski line or hunting and, you know, just nature in general. But, you know, what's better than that is seeing it in real life.
Going to hunt, going to rip.
Yeah,
doing it.
going and doing it. And that's like the proof of work mentality. Like, we shouldn't be flocking to our devices, escaping this reality to go into the virtual world to do cool things, see cool things. And that's the whole archetype that Apple and Facebook are trying to paint for us. It's like, yeah, you know, the real world sucks, but, you know, put on this VR headset. Yeah. So our product is, yeah, maybe it's less sexier, but we don't want it to be sexy. We want you to get that fulfillment from the real world. Like, take this on a badass trip and like sit on the beach and look at the landscape. And then also, you know, be able to read a book, take notes, you know, go on Twitter, but not be so sucked into it to where you can't appreciate the stunning beauty that we have in the world that we live in every day. So I mean, that just came to my attention from what he just said. And I think that's really a return to the real world. And I hope that everyone thinks of it from that frame, because we don't want to have that appeal at the device level. We want you to really get that appeal in your own life.
We like to say, we're taking the color out of the screen to put it back into your life.
That's awesome. I love that. I think one thing that I've done too on my phone, just like trying to do these Band-Aids, as I said, like I relate to it a lot. I've tried to like go black and white, and even that little switch, it's obviously still LED lit and stuff, but even that little switch makes me not look at my phone as long. Not having, when you think about like on these new iPhones, the screen, like the definition of the screen, it's probably more vibrant colors than you might see
100%
in any of your day.
100%.
And so it's no wonder like your brain literally is like, because we're wired for that. We're wired to see those things in our environment, like you mentioned. So that's really cool. What was it again? It was
we're trying to take the color out of the screen and put it back into your life.
That is technology as a tool, not as a vice. And I think that's
it's taken so much away from everyone, right? Because it is that escape. It's a coping mechanism, but you really have to be able to separate that and have the, you know, accountability, responsibility to realize it. But that's why it's going to be so important to get this in people's hands and experience the difference, because it is hard to conceptualize that. But if we do a good job on the education piece, you know, we build a community from the ground up, I think it becomes very evident very quickly. Like, that's, you know, proof of work is the foundation of our company. And once you experience that, I think you'll be fully convinced at how much better of an experience this is in the greater scheme of your life and, you know, what you want to achieve.
As you were just talking, I kind of thought about the fact that, like, say somebody's working in a city, they live in a normal house, they wake up, they turn their blue light on, they get on their blue light phone, they get in their car with a new HD, because you need a screen that's
everything's a screen.
Yeah, you need a freaking LED TV in your screen in your TV in your car for some reason. So they have that. Then they go to the gym and there's LED TVs and blue light. And then you go to your office, which is LEDs and blue light and more computers and more screens. And then they go home and they watch TV on their LED and blue light lit. It's insane when you think about it. And my question is like, why is it taking so long for this even to be a thing? Like, why was this not why was this not like a thing relatively soon after the iPhone, or maybe even with the iPhone or things like that? Why is it taking so long?
I'd say it's a couple things. One is just a technology and timing thing. I think one's an education and knowledge thing. And third is like a values and trade-offs thing. I think technology and timing is just even like what we invented, some of the science that made it possible, that really it only came out in 2015 and 2018. I just started working on this mid-2018. So it's like, if we started working on this earlier, it wouldn't have been possible. And so I think often when you want to do something that's like of a different paradigm, it can't just be like a little bit better. It needs to be like quite a bit better to be worth its while. And it just takes a long time. That last 10% before something finally is good enough, it takes as long as almost the remaining 90. I'm speaking abstractly, but I could give you some examples. One simple example is previously, if you want to build a new computer, you got to pay MediaTek or Qualcomm, the people who make chips, $1 million plus, multiple millions as a license fee. That's their business model. Good luck doing that as a small startup, right? But Moore's Law got good enough. Moore's Law is about how computer chips are getting faster and faster and faster, such that there's something called Internet of Things, or IoT. It's like lawnmowers and sprinklers and that. And MediaTek was trying to stimulate the sales for their IoT thing, because whoever was in charge of that is, on the hook to make that a big division. And so there's no license fees for any of their IoT chips. And they're shitty chips because they're meant to be in like a lawnmower. But somehow Moore's Law got good enough that one of the IoT chips that's made for like a smart home or something is actually like as good as an iPad from like 2021 or 2020, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Because it means a company like us can make a product that's competitive. Like, we can say all this stuff to you, and then you use it, and you're like, bro, this is so slow. Like, what's going on? And our screen could be fast, right? All the stuff, but like just the chip we have is like not great. Apple spends billions of dollars to make their chip. We spent $0. It's an off-the-shelf commodity chip, and it's good enough. This chip came out at the end of 2022. Like, it's not, this project's not possible before that. So it's just like, why? Like, why did Moore's Law finally get good enough? Like, I don't know. It just takes its time, right? And so some of these technology timings things, it's just like, it's almost just like, have you heard of bamboo growth?
Yeah, where it's like 95% of the time.
Yeah. And then at that last poof.
Yeah.
And it feels like that. Like things are changing, but you don't see it. You don't see it. You don't see it. You don't see it. And then bam, hits like a critical point. So I think that's one part of it. I think the second part of it is just, I met the guy who came up with the VA LCD, which is a common LCD type. He's like, dude, I didn't know people were going to use this 10 hours a day. These are calculators. We thought they were going to use it like 2 hours a day max, right? Like, it's like you're not sitting there on your TI all day. It's like a
Texas
similar
Instrument
thing.
84.
You remember your TI 84, man? I was at 83.
Oh, no.
Didn't have the money. Yeah, and he's just like, if you told me that my grandson would be using this, I would have designed this differently. He just said that point blank. I would have designed this differently if I knew my grandson would be using it this much. So in a way, they're faultless because they didn't even realize to the degree our lives would be around computers. And so I think just the knowledge now, like, most people did not know blue light affects them so deeply until you have the Huberman podcast or this. And that's why every podcast I'm on, I always like share gratitude to the podcaster, because you guys are pioneering the way with education, with telling people this matters. And we're just following suit, serving the needs to the problems that you're highlighting matter, right? And so if you don't have this whole knowledge on the science of it, anecdotal, like I think the internet helps because enough people on Twitter are like, dude, this makes me feel bad. Enough people on Reddit are saying like, what's going on here? And they're trying stuff. Oh, when I turn off my Wi-Fi, I sleep better. Or, oh, when I sleep like a baby when I read on a Kindle instead of, my phone, blah, 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 blah. I think there just needs to be certain amounts of knowledge that accumulates. And finally, we're like, what the heck? And I think podcasts are huge for disseminating that knowledge. And it just feels like it's finally clicked and come around. People like Jack Cruz have been talking about this for over a decade, even longer, right? But it's like only now a bunch of people are starting to know. And then I think the third thing is, our thing doesn't have color. Like, we suck at Candy Crush. And if you know that most people buy devices to play games and watch Netflix and do that, like you're going to pander to them because you need to sell hundreds of millions of devices. We don't, man. We don't have public shareholders to report to. We don't need to keep showing some like crazy growth. We can build a humble company that makes maybe tens of thousands, if we do well, hundreds of thousands, who knows, maybe millions of devices. A rounding error for Apple. They sell 70 million iPads. If they sold 5 million more healthy iPads, it would matter zero to them. So it's just like, it's not worth it for them to cater to a bunch of us. And we think we're early in a wave that everybody's going to get impacted. It's like somebody gave the analogy. It's like, just like smoking. Yeah, there's a bunch of people who are early to it. And like, look now, like almost nobody smokes. It's like a similar thing with blue light or circadian rhythms or just a natural lifestyle. I feel like it just takes a couple folks like us and others to say health matters, sovereignty matters, like minimalism, mindfulness, not hijacking my brain and attention matters. And I'm willing to trade off this, and this because that matters so much. And, our Asian manufacturers, when we first met them, they're like, why are you making a boring iPad? Who wants boring iPad?
We do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that to me is a cultural, philosophical, and psychological shift to say, I want a fucking boring iPad because I'm going to do more when this thing does less.
It goes back to what you just said. Like, I want to be using my screens as little as humanly possible so I can go hunt, so I can go ski, so I can go surf, so I can go spend time with my kids and not be on my phone or looking at my watch. Right. Like that's what, and I think if you asked most people that, I think that they would say yes. Like if you said, hey, you could literally have a better life. Like you would objectively live a better life if you spent less time on this thing. You could tell them that, but then if they have the screens, like we said, it's the X. They're not gonna be able to do it. Right. But then when you present them an option that's suitable, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And the color thing, I think, is like, it's almost like a sacrifice in a way, which is like, for me, I want that. Like I literally want it to be less appealing. So I think that's cool. And me and Tristan were talking earlier about how it does feel like we are early on this, like, we're not at critical mass yet, but like people are learning. People are waking up to the fact that we've sort of mindlessly given our brains to these devices at the expense of our health and to the profit of these dudes making billions and billions and billions of dollars. And then when you think about that abstractly or from 30,000 foot view, you wonder why they don't report any studies about it or anything. It's like they're literally billionaires. Apple is a $3 trillion company.
Yeah.
That's incomputable. That's so much money you literally can't even compute it. Like the most, that's so hard to even fathom.
Right.
And it's just really cool to see guys like y'all to like are really putting your foot forward to allow people an option to be able to do that, to be able to say, because right now, like, what is somebody going to do? Not use a smartphone? Good luck doing your job. Like, it's just how the world is. So, I mean, dude, I just think it's so cool.
Well, that's exactly right. We need optionality because optionality is freedom, and we have healthy alternatives for most things, right? We can eat healthier food. We can go outside in the sun. We can buy healthier clothes and cookware and the whole lot of wood plastics and seed oils. But the number one toxin in our environment is still our devices because we're using it so ubiquitously, so frequently, and there's no alternative, just point blank. So you can be as healthy as you want, but if you abuse tech, it doesn't matter. You're probably still going to have, some issues from a health, whether that's physical or neurological perspective in the long term. And yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. So that's why I dropped everything I was doing and jumped on board. And I'm very selective with any gadgets or devices, but it was so obvious to me right away that this is, for people who care about their health, care about productivity, care about creating a better future for the next generation, that this is the most important company in the world to succeed. And I want it selfishly for myself and my family and my children that I don't yet have, but I will, because I don't want them to grow up in Apple-centric, blue light, addicting technology world. Because as of, 3 months ago, my stance would have been, my kid's just not going to get an iPhone until he's 18. it doesn't have to be that way. That's actually not even a great solution from a parenting perspective. It's very restrictive. It's very limiting, and it doesn't have to be like that. So I don't know if the masses come flocking, and they don't have to, like Anjan said. But the movement is growing, and it's catching the attention because of the internet, which is the good use case
The
of
irony.
it, right? It's the irony. But, 90% of people may never buy our product. Who knows? But if 10% of people can drastically change their life for the better and recapture that lost attention, that lost cognitive, power from just the soul-sucking technology we live and die by, that's a win. That's a massive win. And that's a massive amount of people right there.
I feel like if we accomplish nothing but serving some of the ADHD community, I'd be so satisfied. If we did nothing except help people who have really bad eye strain and migraines and headaches, or people who have concussions and traumatic brain injuries where screens really hurt, I'd be satisfied. If there's a few people who, were able to have less blue light and less metabolic health issues or circadian health issues, I'd be satisfied. Like, I think what's most important here is, once again, saying that these values matter and we're willing to trade off fancy stuff for the fundamentals. And you vote with your dollars in buying our thing. And whether we succeed or not, hopefully other people will see this voting and they'll go, okay, this matters. We'll do this. Because there's clearly lots of little companies making blue blockers and making this and that. But there's not been like a big mainstream company putting big dollar amounts to do this, right? And I'd say more than anything else, that's probably the most powerful impact we could have. Sure, we can make a phone, we can make a laptop, we can make a monitor, we could do a lot. Be in many ways like a decentralized public benefit Apple for this generation. But I think the biggest impact is to say, hey, people have these values. Can somebody please make products that represent these values? And as Tristan says, it's just like making that option. For 9 out of 10 people, it's probably not worth it to have another device or do this or that. But if you care about your health, if in other areas of your life you're already investing so much, buying organic, getting BPA free, having an ergonomic chair, getting the right shoes, this is that same philosophy just applied to tech. We'll make mistakes. Our first product's not perfect, but it's only going to get better. And so just trying to find the right people to join the journey. That's the way I think about our first customers is they're making this real. They're voting with their dollars to say this should exist in the world. And I think the best thing we can do is just listen and serve the people who are part of our value system and our community well.
Yeah, I think you guys know who Will Harris is, the rancher. One of his famous things that he says is somebody once told him, he lives in Bluffton, Georgia, very small town, comparatively really small ranch. I think it's like a few, maybe 5,000 acres total or something. Somebody said, well, Will, you can't feed the world like this. And he said, I don't want to feed the world. I don't want to feed the world. I want to feed my community. And the way that I'm just reminded by that because it's like, if you want to help those people, then you've helped those people, which is like, you don't have to make the next iPhone that sells 70 million iPads or whatever and is $3 trillion company. You could legitimately change the trajectory of ADHD, TBI people. Like, you could change their lives forever, which who knows the subsequent like dominoes that will fall from that. I just think that's so cool. And one thing I've heard, you said cognitive power, and I've heard you say cognitive sovereignty.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because like one of my guiding lights is like vitality and sovereignty.
Nice.
Two things I care very much about.
Right.
What is cognitive sovereignty?
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab and then you can go. I think the two words that always keep coming up for me are integrity and sovereignty. Like, to me, being distraction free is like cognitive integrity. It's also cognitive sovereignty because you get agency and your own choices and freedom about where your attention and consciousness and awareness is going versus somebody else telling you, somebody else stealing it from you, somebody else pulling you. You're not sovereign then. Somebody else is making choices on your behalf. How are you ever living your own life then? You're simply you're just being controlled by that around you. And I like to think about health, like physical health of the body, as like physical sovereignty and physical integrity. It's the integrity of all the systems that are going there. And so what I really love about this project is it's not that many ideas. let's have proof of work. Guess what? Nature is a hell of a fucking proof of work. It's shown that this thing works. So everything, let's look through what evolution and empiricism in nature does, where there's a proof of work, where there's enough evidence to show. Even if it's not objective evidence, anecdotal stuff is real. The Lindy effect is real. Another principle, everywhere we can, let's replace illusion with real, fake with real, right? Blue light, that's out of spectrum, fake. Let's replace that with something that uses sunlight and natural light, real, right? Color, fake. When you're looking at purple on your screen, it is not actually like the same purple as a flower. It is a red and a blue dot that are so close together, they trick your brain. And you're far enough away, it looks like purple. But if you go all the way close, there is no purple. You go all the way close to a flower that's purple, it's purple, right? And so at a basic level, your experience using a computer is something just tricking you over and over and over again. Let's go back real. Even if that means black and white. A black on our thing's a black, a white on our thing's white. It's fucking real. And maybe we'll figure out color eventually in a way that's real, right? But we'll do it responsibly. So it's just a few principles. Like, let's go back to rigor, proof of work. Let's go back to real. Let's go back to solving this evolutionary mismatch with what we like to call like evolutionary harmony or something, you know, harmony with the way we've evolved, harmony with our current environments, and harmony with where we want to go. And so that tells me there's something fundamental that we're getting at, that we're not working backwards from technology. We're not working backwards from this is what the market wants. And it's not just completely just what I personally want. It seems like there's a couple principles here that are useful every aspect of your life, and we're just applying it to a certain place called technology.
Which is so pervasive now to like our whole lives.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah, I mean, what is the definition of, sovereignty, right? Because I think it gets thrown around a lot. And I actually looked it up the other day, and it's really just like self-sovereignty. Like sovereignty in general means like someone who's ruling, right? But self-sovereignty is when you are the ruler of your own life, of your own health, of your own psychology. And we don't have that anymore. And for me, I'm coming from that TBI recovery world. So this is massive for me. And I've already shared it with some of the, doctors. I used to have a podcast just talking about brain recovery because it's such a massive community in and of itself. But for me, the reason why I became so hardcore in my lifestyle is because I lost the sovereignty over my health. I was no longer able to do the things that I loved. I was no longer able to live the life that I wanted to. So I had to regain that back. And once I did, I never want to give up the keys to my life ever again. And what we're doing and what you're saying about, I mentioned cognitive power, we're going every day using these devices that are taking from us. So how can we be able to function at our highest level when we're being assaulted while we're trying to be productive? It's not the most effective tool we have. It's like trying to run a race with like a 20-pound monkey on your back. You're not going to run as fast as you can. You're not going to accomplish as much as you can because it's taking energy away from you. It's keeping you in this high stress state. So your mind is never going to be at ease. You're never going to get into those deep creative flow states like you could if you really had technology that was designed to work with your biology instead of against it. And the same applies to what Anja said earlier about nature. It's the same principles because what is biology and nature is one and the same. We're meant to be hyper connected to our environment, and our devices have stripped that away from us at all levels.
Yeah, now we're hyper connected to them.
We're hyper connected to the fake world. So it's a return to real life. And that's why, we're thinking about our marketing strategy and how do we become successful. And, it always comes back to the same thing. If you go look at the Remarkable tablet or these iPad, what sort of commercials and videos are they posting? It's like, the tablet's like, with the stylus is floating in midair and it's doing all these crazy choreographed stuff. And it probably costs $50,000 to make this video. And it's just bullshit. Like that's not the real world. And, what's our content? It's going to look like, podcast clips of us talking, how we think, how we install these values at the company level, proof of work, and then, living the lifestyle, right? Like getting outside, using it outside, being in tune with that local environment because that's real and that's authentic. And that's what I think people are hungry for. So I think it'll be successful. And then it'll be successful for the people who we want to be on board. And we're not selling just a product. We're selling like the whole mission, the whole vision, Like, we want people to support us from day one as early adopters, not because they think the tablet is the most incredible thing, which it really is a incredible technology, differentiated, blows every e-reader out of the water. But that's not why we want to draw in people. We want to draw in people who are like, wow, this company's actually acknowledging the fact that, the health of the end user, the cognitive sovereignty of the end user is actually the number one priority. And we think about that at level 1, stage 1 of product development. Nobody else does that. Nobody else even acknowledges it. They greenwash or health wash their products to be in this space of wellness. But in reality, it's all just a facade again, and making you hyper aware of metrics that are probably not even relevant and trying to tell you how you feel. Here's your sleep score, Nolan. This is how you feel today. When in reality, it's disconnecting you more from your, being in tune with your body and understanding your biology at the most fundamental level. And you can't outsource that to anyone. No one can think your thoughts. No one can feel your body beside you. So why not, grab it by the neck and fucking own it? And that's what we think we can enable.
I think y'all are, I'm the comment about voting with your dollar. That's another thing that I think, like, the dollar is more important than your actual vote nowadays. I really do believe that. And it's so easy for people. Oh, that's a cool idea. That's awesome. It'd be great to have that. But then when it comes down to brass tacks, like, okay, well, are you willing to actually invest in this company? Because it really is an investment, more or less. Like, invest in this company, in this mission, and this technology to actually make it happen. Because if there's no fuel in the fire, then the fire will die. That's just the reality of nature and business. Like, you literally you're going to have to sell product to stay in business. And I think that's like one of the coolest thing to me is I think that, like, you're wearing the Bitcoin shirt. Like, I'm sure that's like super aligned with y'all's community. The esoteric health, like, side of Twitter. I think there's a lot of people that will, like, show up to the booth and put their vote with their dollar in there. And once enough people with influence in those spaces happen or invest or become a part of it, I think that will start to trickle down. And then, I mean, even for myself, my family, like, my parents have a sauna and a cold tub and red lights now and all this stuff because I've literally, like, almost, like, bullied them into it. But, like, they've done it. So it's like the third and fourth order of effects of, like, somebody, like, on Twitter buying it and, oh my gosh, this is great. One of his followers buys it. Oh, this is great. Hey, mom and dad, this is great. Mom and dad tells their friends, and, like, who knows where it can go, One thing I'm curious about, you said you started 6 years ago. Has there been, I'm sure there has been, is there a moment that, like, stands out to you being, like, the toughest in the journey in the last 6 years?
There's so many. I struggled with a lot of mental health stuff along the way. So I got depressed over and over and over again. So there's a lot. Probably the worst was like the December of 2020, like in COVID, where I just felt like there's no way we're going to make progress, dude. I don't even know how long this COVID thing's going to go. Like, trying to invent new hardware during COVID is, like, it's already hard enough to just, like, be a big company with all their sophistication and get it done. Like, trying to make something new, you can't even get to China or Japan or Taiwan, like, or Korea. And it gotten so bad, like, we had so little money left that the two engineers I had hired, we let go of them so they could collect welfare because they were going to make more money from welfare and all the benefits than working for us, just to keep our runway going. And I just didn't see how we could do it. We had so little money. We had no credibility. All the manufacturers and suppliers, like, laughed us out. I didn't know it at the time, but we were still, like, 9 months away from our first working prototype. I didn't know if it'd be another couple of years. I didn't know if the idea would work. And I decided to come down. I was in Vancouver at my parents' house. Decided to come back to the Bay Area in California. And I had, like, so little money. The only place I could afford was a little shack. It was a legal shack. Like, it's not even zoned. Like, they would, in some lady's backyard for like $600 a month. And it had no heating, no nothing, no water. You had to go back into our house to go to the bathroom. And I just remember like lying in this shack. It looked okay on the inside. From the outside, it was a shack. And just being like, what the fuck have I done with my life, dude? And I was eating like Trader Joe's fucking like chicken apple sausages for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a little fucking Black & Decker toaster. And I'd hear that stupid fucking ding, and I'd be like, what the fuck is my life? And I would go for a walk. There was like this trail area behind it near the water. And I'd just be like, why am I even like living, dude? Like, why am I even doing this? So much of my life, I feel like my existence is to serve people, and the feeling that like this wasn't going to help anybody. I was like, why do I exist, right? And so, yeah, I had an email that I wrote at that time to my therapist being like, things are getting dark. I need help. I don't know what's going to happen. And I was so crushed. They never replied. That hurt.
How does it feel now being years down the line on the verge of actually launching?
I think I haven't fully processed like how much it hurt. I think it's in some ways you just have to kind of like repress it a bit, and yeah, it's lonely. You don't know which way it goes, and I think one benefit is I don't really success doesn't really matter to me much anymore because it feels so far away. And the only real goal I had for so much of this journey is just like, can I please not be mentally ill? Can I like please not be depressed? Can I just like please feel normal? And that's kind of all I want now. So if the success happens, it's awesome. If it doesn't, if I'm not depressed, I'll be happy. And so, in a way, I think that makes this dangerous because I'm not attached to any outcome. I'm not trying to do this to win. This is just an expression of myself now. So it's, for better or worse, I'm more artist than entrepreneur these days. When we do podcasts, my team afterwards is like, dude, you got to tell people they can pre-order the computer at daylightcomputer.com. You forgot we're trying to sell a product. I sometimes forget that that's trying to run a business. But yeah, it's surreal. It's surreal. And it's a true honor to have somebody like you to give us the space to share what we're up to in our story, because it's been years in the shadows, you know. And when your company's called Daylight, there's something both necessary and painful about being in the shadows for so long.
Man, that's powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. What comes to mind is the fact, like, if y'all do win, you could also impact other people's. You winning, Daylight Computer winning, would be essentially impacting other people's lives in the same way that you hope to be impacted in yours.
There you go.
Which, how cool would that be?
Yeah, if I could help 20-year-old me, whoever is out there in the world that's going through all the same stuff, like that would be the best thing I can imagine.
That's awesome. I don't know. I think we're probably like an hour or so, but what's next for y'all? Like, what's on the horizon for Daylight?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just geared up, focusing on launch. So tablet first product is available for pre-order at daylightcomputer.com. We're kind of, being a bit more low-key on social media, but going to ramp that up in the next weeks here and build up to our launch in the next 1 to 2 months. And really just try and spread the word, become a credible education source for people about these topics, become a ray of light. I mean, try and show people the way, like that it doesn't have to be so negative, so, so much take, and in terms of using our devices. And if that's successful, we can go and do a whole lot more, right? Like, phone comes to mind, laptop, indoor lighting, research. We can pioneer an entire realm of science by just having our product being real. Like, we can go do a study comparing this to an iPad to a book and see how it turns out. We can, if we're successful, we'll have, enough money to pay for that, or at least have the product available to showcase the massive difference. And then when people become hyper aware of this through the use of the device, both anecdotally and then from a scientific means, it's only going to proliferate from there. So the opportunities really are endless. And even best case, maybe some companies will try and copy us. Maybe this will be the start of an entire new era of technology that is way, way less, inward facing and just taking from us instead of serving as a tool in a more neutral stance. And that would be the best case scenario. Otherwise, we're happy to, pioneer it on our own and be that educational voice and that ray of hope and light for people. So I think for the most part, we're just excited to build a community around this, company's vision and see what the response is like. I mean, already, just doing a couple in-person events, like the reactions you get from people, oh my God, like I can't wait to have this for my kids, or I can't wait, to use this. I've had eye strain for, 10 years and I haven't been able to look at a screen. In the TBI community, I would have died to have a product like this. I bought blue light blocking glasses in 2018.
Before they were cool.
Before I knew anything about health, because I had so much pain from a neurological perspective. And, if I knew that there was a screen technology with a device that was readily available, of course I would have went and bought it, no matter the cost. And yeah, the opportunity is endless. And then we can go and create an entire software ecosystem that prioritizes the end user as well and returns some sovereignty back to all the people who have had their privacy, their data, their lifestyle habits, their network, without consent, stolen from them by big tech. And doesn't have to be this way. So we can really listen to what people want and create it for them if we're successful.
God willing. And it's going to be, first it's going to be a tablet.
Yeah.
And that will be, is there a timeline generally?
Yeah, we're going to launch publicly sometime in May. So the folks now, you're kind of some of the first folks to find out about it. So we're kind of like privately on podcasts like this, trying to find the right early folks. So you go to daylightcomputer.com and you can put a refundable deposit down to be one of the first folks. And then delivery will just happen over the course of the year. First batch sells, the second batch is in the summer, the second batch sells, third batch is in the fall, and then everything else gets fulfilled in November and before Christmas. So if people decide to order 500,000 of these, we'll be able to do it. We actually have a really good factory, but it'll happen at that time. So, and then the phone comes next, and who knows?
And then who knows where that will go?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and the earlier you put down a deposit, the, higher chance you get it, sooner if you didn't. So we're excited to do these in-person events and kind of proliferate that message as well, because obviously getting people's hands on it is going to be important. But yeah, we're on Twitter pretty actively now at Daylight Co. So people can check us out there, ask us some questions.
Instagram as well.
Instagram, it'll be all at Daylight Co. Maybe by the time this podcast's out, we'll have some more content on Instagram. Definitely gonna, ramp that up in the coming weeks. And we're really excited. I mean, just to see the feedback and the response, because if I can tell you anything from the small sample size we have now, that is probably going to be the best aspect of it. And I'm sure there'll be some negative, comments thrown in there, maybe from the people who don't have the same value set as us. But I think the overwhelming response will be incredible and really fuel us to make this a smashing success in the long term.
More power to y'all, really. Firstly, thank you for coming on the show and talking about it and educating people, educating me. And thank you for spending 6 years of your life taking a risk, honestly, for the benefit of a lot of people. Thank you for that, and thank you for helping set this up. It's been a real honor, and I'm legitimately like so excited for y'all. I think it's awesome. You got my vote, so and I'm sure people that are listening to this, there will be some people voting for y'all as well. So more power to you. I can't thank y'all enough.
Means so much. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Right on.